It was 1985 and cold, hard winds were blowing across the quaint old Australian wine industry. They were pulling vines out in Clare. Beautiful old Shiraz and Riesling vines that our grandfathers had planted were worthless. They bulldozed them, lit them up in great bonfires. You could see the glow all over the valley. Peter and Mark Barry decided that before it was all gone, they would make a wine, a great Australian Shiraz from Clare, a defining wine of their region. Their father Jim always taught the boys to do things differently. If everyone is going one way, don't follow. Create your own path, he'd say. The antithesis. Jim had planted a Shiraz vineyard in the shallow gravel sand near the little village of Armagh in 1968. The little patch of 8 acres were hand-watered from a drum in the back of a FX Holden ute in the drought of '69. Only water the ones without leaves, Jim would say. The vines with leaves will live. Don't waste water on them. And true to his word, the dead ones sprouted shoots from below the ground in a few weeks. They did live, and they were pruned and trellised and nurtured to life. So in 1985, the Barry boys picked these purple grapes from these gnarly old vines. From the beginning, it was a wine of the soil, a wine from a special vineyard. It still is. They crushed those berries and carefully pressed them. Then they bought 6 new American hogshead barrels. While everyone else was pulling out vines, the Barrys were buying barrels that were worth more than the grapes. Beautiful barrels they were. They smelt like sweet vanilla, all the way from the forests of America. You see, the opposite, the antithesis. When everyone else was making Cabernet Sauvignon blends, the Barrys were making a Shiraz, which would last for 30 years. The first wine was about 12% alcohol. It wasn't overripe or jammy. Bright crimson red, wonderful acid structure. So they tucked it away in those barrels. The only other wines made like this, aged like this in those days, were Grange Hermitage and Hill of Grace, long before all the other big Shiraz of the 1990s. Then they found a calligrapher and created a unique typeface. They wanted it to look Celtic, like their roots. They found this heavy textured art paper for the label, and they called it Armagh, a tribute to the homesick, teary Irish who settled in 1849, to the persistent, hard-working Barrys, and to a very special little vineyard. History is not luck. History is something you make every day, having a crack, like our forefathers, pioneers, swimming against the tide. It's the spirit of Armagh.
If I was going to sum up the 2017 harvest, it was definitely a marathon, not a sprint. We started picking Armagh on the 27th of March, which is about 3 to 4 weeks later than our 10-year average, and picked the vineyard over 15 days, which is the longest duration we've picked the Armagh. So for a 3-hectare vineyard, it was quite a long, drawn-out process. And the trick with 17 was not to rush into picking. Because it was such a cool growing season, we could wait and allow the grapes to really get nice phenolic maturity and not worry about the losing the acidity, which is an issue in the warmer vintage. The growing season for 17 was really wet, so it set itself up really well for the summer. And then from January, where we normally experience quite a lot of heat, it was really mild, so mid-20 degrees with cold nights and a really long ripening period up to harvest. The resultant 2017 Armagh Shiraz is definitely one of the most elegant we've produced. It's medium-bodied, nice and savoury, really fine tannins, and has a huge potential ahead of it.